Did you have something for him?
Yeah, I talked with you a couple of weeks ago. I was up on vacation in Atlanta. We talked about contracting. You talked to Councilwoman Hamilton was talking about contracting out wastewater, and you talked about $132 million buy-in up front. We talked about that. Remember?
I believe that could be the number or higher. Yes.
Right. And then I found it interesting when we met and talked last week, and I was discussing that, and you said things have somewhat changed. And I said, what do you mean? And we talked, and you said,
I said that the city wants to take a slower approach.
So a slower approach.
Possibly a slower approach.
Right, you had talked to a couple of council members, including the mayor, and they wanted you to talk around that. Now, I didn't get a chance to ask you to define that. What does talking around mean?
I think what I was saying is they want to take a slower approach. They want to take instead of running, the city would like to walk. Instead of moving quickly, the city would like to sit back and see where they can, as the mayor said, help ourselves within ourselves. And so that was the conversation that you and
I remember a few years back.
Earlier when you said, of course, it is a concern of employees thinking that they would be contracted out. Contracted meaning that they would possibly lose a job. So what would be your message to us or to them to dismiss those feelings? And then on the second part, when contracts are being written, could it literally be stated if we were to enter into a contract, whether it was, now we're talking about two different things, the management piece, but then also from other comments, the lease concession piece came up as well. But let's say we did enter into a contract. Could we literally state penalties or what requirements would be in maintaining our same current employees?
I've seen it done, and not the current levels, but the same current employees. Yes, it's done all the time.
Real quick, council, if I could, so we have a quorum for our workshop later on this afternoon. Would you mind us getting this workshop and then us breaking for lunch and then coming back and just doing executive sessions? Is that okay with everyone? Okay. Let's move to the work session number 4, if we could, to discuss water and wastewater utility consulting services for operational assistance of the City of Port Arthur's water and wastewater utilities by Dana Baptiste of the Professional Water Group and Michael Earlbeck of EPCOR Water, requested by Councilmember Hamilton. If you would, trying to make sure you have a quorum here for your workshop today. If you could state your name and address for the record.
My name is Dana Baptiste. I'm the president of the Professional Water Group. Thank you for the invitation to discuss my company and EPCOR Water. And this is Michael Earlbeck, who is with EPCOR Water as well.
Mr. Mayor, council people, thank you so much. Mike Earlbeck, I direct the business development for EPCOR Water here in the United States, and I appreciate the opportunity. We realize we're between you and the rest of your day, so we'll respect your time here. Thank you.
Thanks again. I'm the president of, again, I'd say I'm the president of the Professional Water Group. We're a group of water professionals. Some are retired, some are semi-retired, that I bring on to my team, and we go through and we help the challenges of municipalities with their water with their water concerns. So we do this all over the country. We've done this in the city of Beaumont, city just your neighbor. We were very successful there. I saw an opportunity here to provide the same service, the same opportunity. But going through that, I realized that there was an opportunity to do even more than what we did in Beaumont. What we did in Beaumont was primarily just the collection division and the distribution division. They had some challenges there. The city manager looked to replace the utilities director, asked me to come in to help him kind of right-size the utility, get the management structure back in place, help with some of the cost overruns. They had cost overruns of overtime was $1.1 million, which was a little high for the city of Beaumont. The budget, the deficit was $871,000, which was a little high. What the situation that the city of Beaumont was in was the utility was becoming a liability. And a liability in the sense that every year they were having to increase water rates anywhere from 5 to 6%. So what we wanted to do was make sure that it wasn't a liability, that it was an actual asset, that the utility made or generated a real fund balance that we could smell and hold. And so we went in and we analyzed the utility based on the study that CH2M Hill did before us. We went in, we made some adjustments on the organizational structure. We kind of let the employees, we went in and we had an inclusive agreement with the employees where we let them kind of give us your thoughts, where your frustrations are, where are your challenges, what can we do to make your job easier? And so at the end of the day, we just went and we implemented them. We used our expertise because we had a lot of knowledge on working in places all over the country. And we brought those in. We brought in, made recommendations to the city manager. When the staff wanted to do certain things, we made a good business decision. We made it a business decision because sometimes, not all the time, you have to run the city utility as a business. It has to make a profit. And that's what the fund balance is at the end of the day. So when I looked at Port Arthur, I saw an opportunity here because, and I'm just looking at Port Arthur from the front of it, basically just looking at the budget. I'm looking at the number of employees, the budget. I'm looking at what they're spending on chemicals, what they're spending on power, as much research that I can get off the desktop, which is not very much. And then I'm comparing it to other cities like Port Arthur, very similar to what Councilman Swati did. I'm comparing it to Moore, Oklahoma. I'm comparing it to other cities that are operated by private companies, the sector that I come from, and how are they doing it differently? And that's what we went into in Beaumont. We went into Beaumont and we said, how are you doing it now? How are we doing it in the private sector? And how can we marry the two? And that was the approach. And so that was the discussion that we had, that I've had with several members on the council when it comes to the city of Port Arthur, is how can I help the city of Port Arthur right-size the utility to where it becomes an asset and not a liability. And so in doing that, part of what I do is I reach out to people that do this thing on a national level, and EPCORP's one of them. EPCORP is the ideal partner to partner up with me to come in and help the city of Port Arthur. And so I want to open it up to Michael and let Michael tell you a little bit about who EPCORP is.
Thank you. Thank you again. It's late in the day, so we'll just give you an overview of EPCOR as a company and some idea of the type of interest that we have in working with cities like yours to really bring the private sector to the table in solving water and wastewater infrastructure. EPCOR is a company that owns almost $6 billion of its own water and wastewater assets. We are narrowly traded, which means that that lot size of a company, we only have one shareholder, and that is the city of Edmonton in Alberta. And basically, we are the pension fund for the city. So at our very core, we've been around over 120 years. We think and we act very much like you guys do. You own and operate water and wastewater facilities for the benefit of residents. And so EPCOR in North America serves those services to almost 2 million people. In the United States, we're the largest water and wastewater provider in the states of Arizona and New Mexico, and we should have our first project here in Texas sometime later this month. But what we're seeing industry-wide is for many generations, for water and wastewater has been solely funded by the public, by the state, federal, and local level, and we're seeing limitations on that type of funding where the private sector, who's able to take risks from an operations standpoint, from an investment standpoint, partner with cities and try to meet the objectives and really put together a solution that not only benefits the city, but it also benefits the private sector. And we're seeing more and more private sector capital be placed into city-owned or water and wastewater infrastructure. And there's a lot of different ways that can be done. And really what I'm here to do is kind of listen to the challenges that the city has here and see if there's an interest from your standpoint to opening a dialogue to see how a company like EPCOR and Mr. Batista here can craft a solution to the challenges you face. Thank you. So really, I want to listen and answer any questions that you have.
Again, we see great potential here. You know, we've looked at the numbers. It's all desktop. It's not, we haven't really been able to get in and really kick the tires and interview people and have those conversations. But when we look at it and we benchmark this city with other cities across the country, other cities that are run efficiently across the country, there's great potential here. I know that I've had several conversations, and you know, everyone talks about the rate structure, what the challenge it is, and how it's changed. The city generated in 2014-15, $15 million. You know, where we come from, that's a lot of money, and we believe that there's meat on that bone, and that we can find those savings just in the operations and maintenance of the utility. So that's what we were here to discuss and talk about, and also we can, you know, the beautiful thing about bringing EPCOR along is that we can hit the entire spectrum of this proposal or an assistance to the city. You know, I've heard a lot today about the city, you know, needing funds and getting money. When we went into the city of Milwaukee, we saved the city $13 million a year. We had a 10-year contract on their wastewater treatment plan. We saved the city $13 million, and at the end of 10 years, there was an article in the paper that talked about how the city had saved $130 million from the operations fund of its wastewater treatment plan. You know, the city had to wait 10 years to get that $130 million. There are vehicles out there, and EPCOR's one of them, where the city can right now turn that liability into an asset. And so just by taking those steps, operations assistance, if that's the first step that the council wishes to take, great, we're all for it. We're here to listen to what the council wants to do, and if the council wants to move in any direction, I promise you, we have the resources to do that.
I have a few lights here. I'm sorry.
No.
If you don't mind.
No.
Councilwoman Hamilton?
I'll reserve mine to the end. It's okay.
Okay. Councilman Lewis, were you waiting? Did you want to reserve to the end, or did you have something for him?
Yeah, I talked with you a couple of weeks ago. I was up on vacation in Atlanta. We talked about contracting. You talked to Councilwoman Hamilton was talking about contracting out wastewater, and you talked about $132 million buy-in up front. We talked about that. Remember?
I believe that could be the number or higher. Yes.
Right. And then I found it interesting when we met and talked last week, and I was discussing that, and you said things have somewhat changed. And I said, what do you mean? And we talked, and you said,
I said that the city wants to take a slower approach.
So a slower approach.
Possibly a slower approach.
Right, you had talked to a couple of council members, including the mayor, and they wanted you to talk around that. Now, I didn't get a chance to ask you to define that. What does talking around mean?
I think what I was saying is they want to take a slower approach. They want to take instead of running, the city would like to walk. Instead of moving quickly, the city would like to sit back and see where they can, as the mayor said, help ourselves within ourselves. And so that was the conversation that you and
I remember a few years back, city of Beaumont contracted out there. I think they're garbage collection or something. We talked about. I mentioned that today, and I think Kim Way, one of those waste companies, was taking care of the
Waste management.
Garbage collection. So anyway, Beaumont bought into this. Later on down the line, they wanted an increase and said, we can't afford that increase. And then they said, well, we out of here. I think it was Kim Way. We're out of here. They said, well, hold on, wait a minute. See, they caught them at a time, and they tried the same approach with us, but we turned thumbs down on it. They caught them at a time when the equipment was in bad shape. They had to purchase all this equipment, and they said, well, y'all budgeted $1 million to replace this equipment, so let us come in. We'll give you all $1 million up front, and you all go ahead and do whatever you do, and let us take over. Okay? Mm-hmm. Well, what we did, we got those departments also to bid. Okay? Internally, we got them to bid too, along with what the waste company was doing. And guess what? Internally, staff outbidded them. So we turned thumbs down on them. Okay? And then one of the things that happened to Beaumont, when they pulled out, all of a sudden now you got to go staff up again. Mm-hmm. You're talking about $132 million up front. What can we do with that?
I'll tell you this. I've been in that situation many times. Mm-hmm. Or I've seen it many times. Mm-hmm. What happens in solid waste is all about people. And solid waste, the asset is the garbage truck. And at the end of the day, it's who owns the garbage truck. Now, I've told cities, and I counsel cities all the time, never sell your asset. You should always own that asset. It's an asset. It's not if it's a liability, sell it. But if it's an asset, don't get rid of it. Make it work for you. Turn it into a profitable venture. So what in the wastewater business, in the utility business, unlike the solid waste business, the city still owns the asset. In the lease concession, you have a 30-year contract, and you know exactly where you're going to be in year 1, in year 9, in year 18, in year 28, in year 30. You know exactly what the rate structure is going to look like. You know exactly what the parameters are going to be when the flows increase at the wastewater treatment plant. Because these guys, EPCORP Water, that's what they do for a living. They focus on water and wastewater on a daily basis. Like Michael said earlier, when I was at American Water, we had more employees than most cities had employees in the entire city. And all those employees did was focus on water and wastewater, customer service, water conveyance, wastewater conveyance, water distribution, water treatment. Companies like EPCORP write water studies annually. That's what they do. And so that's the benefit that the city gets in Port Arthur. They benefit from that, having all those experts behind you. And that's why I go and get guys like this, because I don't know everything. I'm good at what I do, but I don't know everything. So it's good to have guys like that saying, here's an expert that can do this. Here's a guy that can do this. Here's a customer service person that manages not just 20,000, bills a month, but manages 200,000 bills a month. And so that's the benefit, and that's the advantage of having a partnership with Professional Water Group, and that partnership comes along with EPCOR. Because the first thing I asked them was, do you want to participate in this? I would love to have you. Because I know together we can make some real changes.
That buy-in, that's that 132 million you was talking about?
I don't know what the number is.
Well,
everything that I've done, I perceive the number to be there, and I think the number could actually be higher. I don't know yet, but when I look at the budget, when I look at the numbers, when I look at the revenue that's generated here, when I look at what the city needs, and in a sense that the city needs $52 million to fix streets that the water utility fund doesn't have, we're all in. We're ready to write that check. Because we believe, just based off of what we've seen, is that the water utility fund
I hear what you're saying.
can work.
If for some reason or another the city would entertain that, whatever monies you put up front or buy-in as a buy-in, city couldn't. That manager he can't afford to spend that money. He can't spend that money. I know I wouldn't spend it. I'd escrow it or do something with it because you're going to be taking over city employees too. Okay, right? You're going to be taking over employees. What's going to happen 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? And when, like the city of Beaumont, done got that buy-in, they spent the money, then all of a sudden they had to go back and retool. Well, now that whatever the buy-in you considering, if the city considers that, it's no way. Then I'm going to advise the managers to expend that money.
If I was to come here and ask the city for or ask EPCOR to partner up with me on a 10-year deal, they wouldn't do it. They're not interested in that. They're interested in investing money into infrastructure in the United States and into cities like Port Arthur. If I was to ask them for a 10-year deal, they wouldn't be interested.
No. Don't get me wrong. You're looking at long term, maybe 20, 30 years.
Yes.
That's what you're looking at. Okay, once you buy in and they lock into this, so you got a 30-year agreement with the city. But I'm concerned now, what happens to the city employees that was forced to come with you all as contract labor? What's going to happen with those guys 5 and 10 years down the road? That's what I'm talking about.
Well, they're not city employees.
But no, they won't be city employees.
They're not contract employees. Excuse me. They're not contract employees. They become EPCOR employees. Now, that's a good question. What's going to happen to them? That's a decision for the council.
I understand.
And we're going to base our numbers based on that decision for the council. So if the council says, hey, in which I've been in this business 25 years, and I've been on the private sector 25 years, and not once have I seen it to where we've laid off employees. We don't do that. The reason we don't do it is because we can't do it. If we did it anywhere else, people would be jumping in here saying they're laying off.
Stop right there. Yes, you don't have a history of laying off employees. I can agree with that. I can see how that would work. But what happens to those employees? Increments, raises, and benefits.
Oh, yes, sir.
What happens?
They actually make more money.
What about the benefit side of it?
The benefits, it's employees. When you come into a city like Port Arthur, the employees are the biggest concern.
Yeah.
And they're always going to have
and they vote
three
too.
major
and
issues.
They vote too.
They're going to want to know, first off, am I going to have a job? And the answer is yes. They're going to want to know, secondly, will my benefits remain the same?
Or better.
Or better. And the answer is yes, every single time.
It's gotten better.
It gets the same or better. Then they're going to answer, will my job description change? And the answer is maybe. You might not be doing the same job. And for several reasons. You may not be suited for what you're doing. We may need you to do something different. But you're definitely going to be coming to work every day. You're definitely going to be able to feed your family. You're definitely going to have a retirement to retire on. Now, for the guys that have been there 30 years, they make out like a bandit. For the simple reason is they go and they get their retirement from the city, and now they're getting that same check they were getting from the private sector. So they have a really good deal.
That's one of the questions I wanted to clear, because that happens in a lot of civil service workers. They'll 20 years, they'll go to another, and they'll draw on their resources. So what you're saying is a possibility that they could come to work for you all and draw on their...
Oh, not a possibility. They do it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a...
So it would be no conflict.
You'll start seeing
it wouldn't be no
vehicles roll
conflict
around
there.
the city.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, okay. Would they still qualify? Yeah, come on up. Yeah, would they still qualify under that 401ks, those kind of things? But you all will handle that, or would it? What about those contributions?
I figured Dana's deep enough into my pocket. At this point, we can get up and talk a little bit. But yeah, I mean, from your question from the 401k, as an EPCOR employee, you have, in my career experience, pretty generous retirement package, health insurance, those kinds of things. But we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. You know, what I like to do early on is define the problem. What is the solution? Right?
Okay.
What's the problem? And private sector can come and help address a lot of different types of challenges the city may have. You guys may have a very large capital upgrade that you're not well positioned for, that you want help on a new facility. And that's the limit of your interest in what could the private sector do there. You may have facilities that are operating out of compliance chronically, either from a water side or a wastewater side. What could the private sector do there? And so really I want to kind of focus before we talk too much about what a solution looks like. I'm not sure what are the challenges the city has. Obviously, all we know, for me is kind of my attendance here, and I know you guys have an obvious commitment to your ratepayers. And you have a commitment to seeing their needs get met now, and
Let me give you an example of what kind of problem we're having.
Please.
We're treating 100% water.
Right.
Okay, but we're sending out 100 gallons, and we can't find 60 of them.
Okay.
That's one of our problems.
Right.
Okay, so we got losses. We hired Siemens and do the metering, do all these different examiners, and they're probably still doing some things for us. But we have not solved that's complete. I think we got a measurement or something in the Dr. Johnson system with 15 or 20% savings or something like that. But we still losing a large amount of our treated water, and chemicals are not chemicals are not cheap. Okay. So, how would you approach that situation?
Well, that unbilled water...
It's going somewhere.
Well, it's obviously going somewhere. It represents potential revenue. And so you approach trying to find that lost water with the least amount of money first to get the biggest bang for your buck. Because, by the time you get to that 10% lost, the amount of money and time it's going to take you to chase that last 10% down may not be worth what it's going to generate. But that first 20%, may be easy to find. So you come in and learn the system, and then look at it. And
so what you're saying, your first initial goal would be to get 50% of that loss, account for 50% of that loss.
Well,
because you're not going to count for 100%.
It kind of goes back to what is the problem? Is the problem the city has a system that they would like some consultants to help them with? That's a different question. If the city's saying, look, we want maybe the private sector, you guys operate the system, and then the lost water problem is your problem, right? Mm-hmm. So now that problem boils down to a business decision on EPCOR side, right?
Let me help. And what we did in Beaumont had a similar situation, 48% unaccounted for water, which is high, which is really high.
Yeah.
So 60% is unheard of. Even this is the first time I've heard of it. And with the city of Port Arthur. what we did in Beaumont is we just had to go do it through old school. We had Johnson Controls in, and they had the same program that Siemens has with the meters and the soundings and the listening devices, and we just couldn't solve the problem.
I know where you're going with this, and I want you to state it. What's your approach for public record? You and I, we've already talked about it. Go ahead.
But it wouldn't be my approach for Port Arthur because I don't know. My approach for Beaumont was we just had to start popping lids on storm drains and things like that to find where the big flow was, because we knew there was big flow somewhere. It's just not a meter leaking. You know, unlike that commercial meter, that was a pretty good leak. But it's just not meters leaking all over the place. It's a trunk main somewhere, and we've got a problem. So we just had to start just popping lids, and Beaumont's been popping lids ever since I left. And we're doing it they're doing it internally, so it is taking some time. But when I spoke with Beaumont last week, they were at 35%. So we've gone from 48 to where CH2M Hill said, and now we're at 35. So we're getting a little bit better. We're still not seeing the benefit of the Johnson Control meter program, but that's okay. We're just going to have to go through it old school. And so we're trying, different mechanisms and different ways, and the beauty of it is we have resources of guys that have operated all over this country that have different ideas on how to find unaccounted for water. Because if it's not an epidemic, or if the city's not viewing it as an epidemic, then they should.
Okay. Appreciate your comments. We talked about then kick it around, and I like that approach.
And the other thing is other programs. The home warranty program is another program.
Oh, yeah,
that helps the homeowner on the homeowner side. That's what we talked about, the home warranty program. So,
warranty.
give the homeowner a little break. Allow his meters to be fixed
Talk about
as
that
well.
in depth. Talk about that in depth.
Well, the proposal that I made to the city of Beaumont was to bring in HomeServe USA as a home warranty group, and that group would basically, in partnership with the city, market a warranty program that would lessen the burden on homeowners when they have leaks or sewer stoppages. At the same time, lessens the burden on the utility, the city's utility as well. Because in Beaumont, they were, for every call, 2/3 of the calls, the problems were on the homeowner side. So it's very disheartening for a homeowner to hear every time that it's not our problem, it's yours. We can't help you here. How do I fix this? Who do I call? Well, I can't tell you who to call. It's a whole lot easier if you can say, this company has been vetted by the city, they've been researched, they've been recommended, and they're in partnership with the city. This is a company that you can use, who uses local plumbers and contractors that are fingerprinted, background checked, drug tested. And so everyone can feel safe and comfortable in the fact that the homeowner gets their water line or sewer line repaired.
Mayor Pro Tem Scott.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I just have a few comments. Our problems have been leaks. Okay, leaks. We've had problems with in collection and our billing services. Now, we've invested money already into leaks, and we're still working on leaks, trying to identify them with semen and some other ways of finding leaks. Okay, now the collection itself has gotten better with Dr. Johnson being here. The collection has gotten better. The billing service, we pay for a new billing service to be put in place also. So that there has not been around long enough for us to see how well it works for us. So we put these things in place already, and I do believe, like I think you said, the mayor said, we need to help ourselves or find out what we can do for ourselves. And I think that with these new things in place, we definitely need to find out what we can do for ourselves first, because these mechanisms are new, but they are able to show progress, progress in the water utilities department. Like I said, Dr. Johnson has been here and he's done very well with. We see the process with collection, and that's working. The new billing system that we have, I mean, it's online. Is it online yet, City Manager? Yeah, yes.
It's real close.
Okay, so that's about to be online. So those things in place now, we really need to find out how well we can do for ourselves as of now.
And that's why I'm here,
Right.
to kind of present that as well.
Right.
I mean, present that primarily, and that's what I was talking about. It's taking a new direction, is to how can I help the city like I did in Beaumont.
Right.
What we did in Beaumont was they had, a perfect example, they had 9 crews doing sewer maintenance. We reduced that down to 5 crews. None of the employees lost their jobs. We just reallocated people. Crews were doing things like responding to calls when we could just put one guy in a truck and let him respond to a call. Let him evaluate the situation, then write the work order, and then then we could prioritize the work that needs to be done. Then the homeowner would get the intel on when the city would be out there to repair it. We did things like that. We by doing that, we were able to reduce their costs. That $871,000 to $1.2 million in the black in less than 6 months.
Well, you know, and that's why I don't think it was so much the people, our employees. I really feel that it's the mechanism that was not the mechanism that was not in place in the management form of, you know, with us not having an update building services, okay, not having a program in place to show positive movement in collection, you know, and finding all these leaks. We do have some in place. We're finding leaks. We're working on that. But those 3 areas has been the problem I feel that we've had with our water department, is in those 3 areas. And we are working on those areas. We do have a mechanism in place to improve what we have. And that's why I said I think we need to look at what all we can do for ourselves, what we have in place now that we are not really familiar about, or can see the improvements now because they've just been put in place.
You know, when I was, and I understand, when I was in the city of Laredo and it was with United Water, we went in and kind of took over their operations, contract operations. And they had 101 breaks per mile. They had absolutely the worst system, infrastructure I've ever seen. There's 101 breaks per mile. And Laredo's pretty spread out. They were operating at 12 million. We took that down to 8.4 million. We didn't lay off one employee. We managed the system. And so I just say that with my experience and my expertise and the team that I bring in, I think that we can give the city of Port Arthur what it's looking for when they're looking for answers in the utility. As a whole, not just in certain areas, but I'm talking about in the utility as a whole, the water treatment plant, the wastewater plant, the distribution system, the collection system, the customer service, and not only that, but also the capital improvements. What do we really need to be spending those capital dollars on, and where does it make good sense? And that's kind of what what we bring, and
Well,
that's what we
a lot
brought
of that
into
come
Beaumont.
together with the leaks, though. Okay,
No, sir. No, sir. Not to start with.
not to start with.
No, sir.
Okay.
What comes in to start with is, like I said earlier, we're gonna walk before we run.
Mm-hmm.
What comes in early, what to start with, is what I did for Beaumont. We didn't lease that system in Beaumont.
Mm-hmm.
We came in on an operations assistance. We came in to assist the leaders of that utility.
In every area,
executive team.
you said in every area, right?
No, sir. In Beaumont, we only got to the water and the distribution.
Okay.
In Beaumont, but it affected other areas because it got everyone else thinking out of the box, and it because we were in there, and because we were there, and because we were bringing new things in, they were able to find $3 million just in their capital program.
Well,
So it just inspires
Right.
and it pushes.
Well, one of the things that really comes across is, making the employees feel that they're going to be safe.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's one of the main things that we would have to do.
And that's what we do. And in the first meeting, we sat down with employees and we told them, we're not your enemy. We're here to help you.
Yeah.
And that was the truth. We were there to help.
Yeah.
But they couldn't continue to do $1.1 million in overtime. That just was not healthy. The city of Port Arthur has $400,000 budgeted in overtime for distribution, $400,000 budgeted in overtime for collection. I don't know if that's numbers needed, but I know when you look across the industry that I come from, that's a big number.
Yeah. Well, again, like I said, we really need to find out what we can do for ourselves first, and before we consider privatizing. That's
Well,
all.
and I wouldn't consider
Excuse me, I'm
privatizing.
talking to him.
Yes.
I'm just talking out loud.
Well, please don't talk a lot because you're distracting me.
I apologize.
I wouldn't consider privatizing. Privatizing is when the city sells its asset. You got an asset. You don't have a liability. Right now, it looks like a liability, but it truly, if it wasn't an asset, we wouldn't be here.
No meat on the bone.
I'm through.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hamilton?
Right. I was agreeing with you. One of the things first of all, thank you, and thank you, Mike, for coming. I appreciate you all providing the information to us. Dana and I met a couple of years ago, not long after the budget meetings we had last year. Understanding our $52 million deficit is what got my antennas up to begin to learn more and more about operations in water utilities. Fortunately, we had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to visit our water treatment facilities and our wastewater plants. And we were able to learn in more detail of the intricacies of what is happening in our city. Fortunately, we have some amazing employees that literally have worked with some horrible equipment, but they learn how to make it through, and they learn how to figure out what needed to be done in chaos and figure out what needed to be done to keep it, running smoothly. So we are very grateful that we have them so we can have clean drinking water. They even taught me how to test my bottled water. Our water is safer than bottled water. So, but when we look at just last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, we had a pipeline burst. The infrastructure in our city is old, especially in the first built areas of our city. So when I think about, God forbid, a pipe bursting, and we just went to talk, we just had a conversation, and Mr. Jerry told us about the financial situations that we're in. That's a part that I want you to be more detailed in, to tell us how are we able, with the opportunity of partnering, with a company like the Professional Water Group and EPCOR have the opportunity to prepare in advance so that we're not having these water line breaks and then having to come before council again to decide where can we get the money from, because this is emergency right now, and not put ourselves in a bad situation of lowering our rating again too. And so would y'all be able to test the pipes that we have now, knowing to be able to tell us how old they are, if they have lead in them?
I'm just talking about the industry as a whole. I'm not speaking on behalf of HEPCorp on this. I know Michael's kind of going, what's Dana going to commit to now? But I think that what the beautiful thing, and I do believe it's a beautiful thing about a public-private partnership, is that you share liabilities. You're able to the city's able to pass some liabilities on to the private sector and let the private sector manage that. Trust me, their cost is in there for managing that asset in the state that it's in. Now, one thing that we've done in the past is we come in and we do a life cycle on every piece of equipment, from 25 horsepower motors on up. And so we want to know how old the lines are. We want to look at all the old data to see where they're breaking, where the problems are. EPCorp's, companies like EPCorp's or group like that, they have money, and that's what they want to do. They want to put it into the infrastructure because they know if they put it in the ground and they operate it efficiently, they're going to get a return. And the one thing that I like about EPCorp Water is that they're not looking for a return like a hedge fund group. They're looking for a return like a pension group. And so they're not trying to just bull the market and make money. They understand that their money, that the revenue that they generate is going to come over that 30-year period. They get that more so than anyone. And so that's why they're interested in 30-year deals. That's why they don't like 10-year deals. But what we do is we try to gauge the age of the system, and to our best understanding, and I'm talking about the industry now, to our best understanding, what we want to do is we want to come in and say, okay, we're looking at 50 breaks per mile, and we've got a budget for that. And we have to understand that. Now, when the catastrophe happens, like the main water breaking, that's not a city problem. And a lot of things can happen with a main breaking. You can shut a valve down, an employee can shut a valve down and hammer that line and blow it. In that scenario, the city operating the utility, the city repairs the line. It's a problem. In that scenario, a public-private partnership, the city calls EPCorp and says, when are you going to get the line back up? It's not the city's problem. That liability is passed to EPCorp Water. And that's their responsibility. Same employee, just a different name on his shirt. A different company name, same name on his shirt. So when we talk about sharing liabilities and responsibility, that's a great advantage for the city of Port Arthur, is to remove some of the liability that you have now. You've got an old asset in the wastewater plant. It's an old asset. Remove some of that liability. Pass that on to a guy that he's gonna set his budget to it, but he understands that, and it's more control at the end of the day, because all you have to do is make one phone call, and that takes care of the entire group.
Earlier when you said, of course, it is a concern of employees thinking that they would be contracted out. Contracted meaning that they would possibly lose a job. Okay. So what would be your message to us, or to them, to dismiss those feelings? And then on the second part, when contracts are being written, could it literally be stated, if we were to enter into a contract whether it was, now we're talking about two different things, the management piece, but then also from other comments, the lease concession piece came up as well. But let's say we did enter into a contract. Could we literally state penalties or what requirements would be in maintaining our same current employees?
I've seen it done, and not the current levels, but the same current employees. Yes, it's done all the time. Like I stated earlier, I've been in this business 25 years. I have never seen where we've gone in and laid people off. We just can't do it. It won't fly. And Milwaukee was an ASME union. It was an ASME union. And if you don't understand that group, that's a tough group to deal with. And so when we walked into Milwaukee, they wanted make sure their jobs were held, make sure they were going to have a job, make sure their benefits were the same or just as good. Now, the job positions clearly may change.
Thank you, Mr. Dana.
Councilman Lewis?
That was a question about lead content. Well, it's been my experience that the water leaves the plant in great shape. It's when they go down, when they go downstream and test the water at the houses, and their lead starts showing up.
Yes.
Now that came from the homes that was built in the 80s and what have you.
Longer than that.
Well, when they started using the copper and the lead solder. But when the PVC and stuff come out, then you gotten away from the lead. It's been it's been the lead solder is where the problem comes in. There. All before then, you had those old rigid pipes. Yeah. Okay.
All right, Mr. Baptiste, I don't have any other lights. I appreciate your time today. Thank you. If you have any information you could leave with us, we'd appreciate it, pamphlets or anything, so we could research a little further. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on, wait, Councilman Lewis.
Just one of the, Mr. Baptiste, I'm glad I had an opportunity to visit with you early on. That gave me an opportunity to get the kind of question and get the kind of response out of you. Because I was noticing that you went kind of flat there and nobody wasn't asking that question. So I'm glad we had an opportunity.
Thank you as well.
Mayor, just for the audience, please understand that because it wasn't a whole lot of dialogue doesn't mean that we weren't interested in what they were saying. We asked in advance for Mr. Batiste to reach out to every council member to make sure that they understood why they were coming and what we were going to be discussing.
Thank you. If it's the will of council, we'll go ahead and take a lunch break and then come back for executive session if that's okay with everybody till 3:30. You okay with that? We ain't gonna make a motion for that. Huh? Yeah. We'll take a recess. Be back real at 2:24.